Hi, guys. For everybody who is here, welcome. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your holiday weekend to join up with us for this exciting tasting. We're going to give just a few minutes here. It's a holiday weekend after all, so we may have a few stragglers rolling in. Then we'll get into some introductions and most importantly, into tasting some delicious beer. So thanks for joining us. Stick around with us. We'll see if anybody else pops into the meeting here. And if they don't, then this will be a highly intimate tasting for those of you that are here. So, in the meantime, enjoy this very awkward silence for a few more minutes. All right, guys, this might be it. It is Christmas weekend after all, so we will go ahead and jump right in. Once again, guys, thanks so much for being a part of this. This is obviously a pretty unique uh, affair for us, like it is for a lot of folks. COVID has forced us to pivot a little bit and do some less traditional things. This is one of the ways that we're hoping to engage with you guys. We're really excited that y'all chose to be with us on this holiday weekend to taste some Silent Night. So we'll do some quick introductions and then some housekeeping items. And then we'll launch right into this presentation and into some beer drinking. My name is Travis Quinn. I'm the Director of Sales for Mother Earth Brewing. I'm joined today by our Executive Vice President and Master Brewer, Matthew Hart, who's a part of the presentation as well. So we're going to jump right into some intros. I'm going to toss it over to him real quick and let him tell you a little bit about himself and how he got to be. And then I'll talk a little more and we'll jump right to it. Matthew, you're up.
Thanks a lot, Travis. And hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Matthew Hart. I'm the current EVP at Mother Earth Brewing. I manage a lot of the day-to-day operations on the floor. And I've put my hands in a lot of product over the years and kind of hands-on on the floor. I started my career about 12 years ago in brewing. I was hired at Mother Earth about 9 years ago now. I'm currently pursuing a master's of science at Heriot-Watt, and I do a lot of research related to hops, hop thiols, and biotransformation of those compounds. If you're interested in things like that, feel free to reach out to me after this presentation, because for this one, we'll be focusing on Silent Night and all things Silent Night. I'm going to toss it back to Travis so he can talk a little bit about what he does at the brewery, and you'll hear from me again later on in the presentation.
Almost forgot to unmute there. Matthew, thanks very much. As I mentioned, my name is Travis Quinn. I am the Director of Sales at Mother Earth Brewing. I've served in a number of capacities with the brewery since it was founded in 2009. I jumped on board with them right after they opened their doors after being laid off from a previous job. Always wanted to drink beer, had a real affinity for craft beer. A lot of folks ask if I went to college for that. The answer is usually no, but like a lot of people, I learned a lot about it while I was there. Have evolved through several different roles, including working on the packaging line, managing our tap room for a few years before moving into the director of sales role for the brewery. Got my degree in communication studies from UNC Wilmington, focusing primarily in broadcast journalism. Clearly has nothing to do with this field, but let's face it, there's a lot of folks from college that aren't working in their career fields at this point. I really love what I do. I love telling folks about beer. I love the elements of how it evolves, how it changes, being able to share that with folks and to really just educate the general public on why craft beer is such an enjoyable experience for me and why you should be drinking that over most macro light lagers. I also love sports. If you guys are college football fans, particularly if you're a fan of the NC State Wolfpack, you can hear me on game days inside Carter Finley Stadium. My side gig is that I'm the public address announcer for them, which I've been doing for about 4 years. So I literally get paid to drink beer and watch football. Never let your parents tell you not to follow your dreams. It's a lot of fun. So we're going to hop right in here and talk a little about beer. Before we get started, just a little bit about it. You guys should all have your 4 packs of Silent Night. There are 4 different varieties in that pack. We recommend using multiple glasses if you have them. Snifters are ideal because they've got that bulbous bottom so you can really capture the aromatics of the products and then lay them out in a fashion that you can keep up with which ones you're tasting throughout. If you're only going to use one glass, we do recommend you splash a little water in there and rinse it out in between each pour as we go through. We're going to give you cues throughout the presentation of when to pour each one. If you do opt to drink ahead, guys, go for it. We're here to drink beer and have a good time. Don't let us slow you down if you want to continue tasting stuff throughout the presentation. If you do opt to do that, the one thing we recommend is definitely save the Noche Silenciosa for last, the Mexican hot chocolate style. There's a lot of different spice characters and flavors in that have the potential to disrupt your palate. And if you're looking to really taste some of the different nuances that you get with the other 3, the Reserve and the Grand Reserve and the standard issue stuff, you're definitely going to want to save that Noche Silenciosa for last. But otherwise, if you want to drink ahead, feel free to do that. If you have questions about anything at all as we go through the entirety of the presentation, feel free to hit us in the chat link. We're going to be answering some of those at the end. If there's still only 4 of you guys here at the end, we may even just unmute you and let you throw out some questions to us in real time, and we can talk about them in a little round table. We want you guys to have a great time. We want you to learn as much as you want to about Silent Night or other Mother Earth beers or the brewery or life or whatever suits your fancy today. We'll talk real quick too about tasting beer critically, which is one of the aims of this presentation. If you've seen the movie Sideways, you'll recognize our friendly curmudgeon Miles over there and his buddy Jack. Miles, who always likes to taste his wine critically, and Jack, who just wants to know when we get to drink it. If you just want to drink it, pour some in that glass and go for it. If you want to taste it critically, the best ways to do it are as follows. The first thing you'll want to do is pour some in your glass. Give it a good 3-finger, 4-finger pour in there. Make sure you can see it. First thing you want to do, once you have it in hopefully your snifter glass, is to hold it up. Look at it. Take in its appearance. Look at things like color. What color is it? Is it light? Is it dark? These are all going to be dark, obviously. We're not going to be going through something too crazy here, but What's the clarity look like? Is it clear? Can you see through it? Is it hazy? Is it cloudy, turbid? Is there head retention when you pour it in your glass? Do you get some head that remains on top of the beer? Does it dissipate quickly? After that, the next thing to do is take in the aroma, swirl it around in your glass a little bit, just like if you were doing a wine tasting. That's okay. You want to oxygenate it a little bit and stick your nose into it. Some people want to get real dainty with it right off the top. I recommend just go ahead and put your whole nose in that glass and really inhale into it. See what you're getting out of it. And just take in notes of what you smell. You know, do you smell vanilla? Do you smell spicy notes? Do you smell flowers? Do you smell wood? The important thing to note with any of these next three, aroma, flavors, mouthfeel, is that there aren't really wrong answers here. Everybody's palate is tuned a little bit differently. One of you might smell cherries in your beer. One of you might smell something totally different. There's no wrong answers. Take note of what you smell when you put your nose in there. The next thing to do is take a sip. Swirl it around your mouth a little bit. You know, don't just take it straight through like a shot, but let it sit across your tongue. Let it roll across there, and take note of what you taste. What are the flavor notes that you get out of that? You know, some people may just say, "Oh, it tastes like beer," or "It tastes like coffee," or "It tastes like whatever." But dive into it. Are there other little fruit notes? Are there savory notes, spicy notes that come through with that? And finally, take note of the mouthfeel. You know, how much carbonation is in there? What's it feel like on your tongue? Is it really full? Is it really light? Take note of what those things look like when you're going through that as well. And then what the aftertaste is. How does it linger after you swallow that liquid down? Those are things that you should do, not just with these beers, but if you want to taste critically with any and every beer that comes across your way. Lots of beers are just made for drinking. You're going to want to sip through them. But if you really want to dive in and learn more about styles, this guideline is a great way to follow through on that. So that being said, let's jump right into the first pour, which is that standard issue Silent Night. This is a Russian Imperial Stout. The ingredients list is right there. Really big malt forward beer. Plenty of UK 2-row barley as the base. Some caramel malts and chocolate roast barley that add coloring flavor notes in there. Always brewed with just a little hint of molasses in there to kind of put some sweet balance in with the big roasty notes of this. And then each year that we brewed this, we always use some roasted coffee from our friends at Counterculture Coffee. That resulting liquid, as you can see, it's rich, it's dark. You get flavors and aromas that are similar to dark chocolate, coffee, toffee, and then of course the woody oak notes that shine through in there as well. This beer has always been barrel aged. In more recent years, we've started playing with a different number of limited variants of this that are brewed, whether with different fruits, flora, some different barrel aging processes, and so on and so forth. So go ahead and open up that first bottle, pour it in there, give yourself a nice little pour, enough that you can take a look at it, go through those critical tasting notes, and feel free to go ahead and take a sip. We do have some notes on these that we'll share with you as far as tasting notes. We're primarily saving our tasting notes for the end of the presentation because we want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to really get into it and not necessarily have your visions of what you're tasting clouded by what we're telling you that you should be tasting. So just take some mental notes as you go along, write them down if you want to, and we can chat about those towards the end of the presentation. The Russian Imperial Stout, from a historical perspective. You know, anytime you're talking about oral histories of beer styles, they're pretty convoluted, and a lot of different people will tell you a lot of different things as far as what you're getting out of each one of these. So we sort of have to piece together a lot of where these things come from. One of the things that we can kind of nail down is that the Russian Imperial Stout as a whole was first brewed in the 18th century by the Anchor Brewery in London, owned by a gentleman named Mr. Henry Thrale, which later became known as Barclay Perkins. The Russians were big on it. Peter the Great, just a few years earlier in the late 17th century, had been over to London and really taken an affinity for what he called stout beers, known primarily for the strength of the liquid rather than anything to do with color or other brewing ingredients. He liked big, strong beers, presumably that got you drunk. It's cold in Russia. I assume that he didn't want to think about that any more than he had to. When they got that first batch brewed in the 1720s, almost the entire stock of that was exported to Russia. Catherine II, known as Catherine the Great, was also a known lover of the style, who really took to it and had as much of it brought in as she could get. The liquid itself is top fermenting. It's an ale yeast, so the yeast sits on top of the liquid, ferments its way down into the beer. It's high gravity. There's lots of malt in there, which leaves lots of sugar that's fermentable for the yeast later on, brewed with those dark malts. And the Russian Imperial Stouts always clock in at pretty strong, around 10%. A Silent Night, I believe, clocks in right around 9.5%. So they're big beers. I tell people that Silent Night is either the pace setter or the knockout punch, depending on when you choose to drink it. These were distributed to the Russian court by a German guy named Albert von Lecoq. He was awarded a Russian royal warrant, which gave them the ability to ascribe Imperial to the liquid, indicating that it was approved by the Russian court. These days, Imperial is a term that is generally applied to any liquid that's considered a double version of what it previously was, whether it's a double IPA, a double stout, typically indicating higher malt content, higher alcohol in the product to finish with. There are a lot of popular variations of this style. Almost all of these styles are produced in the United States. Now, all the stouts are produced in the United States now, with a few exceptions, but some popular variations are listed over there, including New Holland Dragon's Milk, Founders Kentucky Breakfast Stout is certainly a popular one. Old Rasputin is considered one of the granddaddies of the Imperial Stout category in the United States from North Coast Brewing. Firestone Walker Parabola is one of my personal favorites. These are all typically barrel aged. They usually clock in that same ABV range between 8 and 10%. And you may see some that incorporate other flavor additions: vanilla beans, cinnamon, coffee, chocolate, peppers. Some of these may include all of them. You might even taste one later in this presentation. So stick around and we'll see where it goes. Silent Night to us is a really unique beer. This is one, the very, very first batch of this was brewed as just a single barrel pilot batch for the grand opening of our tap room back in 2010. Total labor of love that folks instantly fell in love with, even amidst all the great things we had on tap. We really fell in love with the liquid and decided it needed to become a limited Christmas release. So we did a batch of it that very first year. We packaged off about 100 cases of it. We sent almost all of those to our wholesaler. And the day that it released, I got a call at 11:30 that said, "Hey, we need you guys to send more of that Silent Night beer." I said, "What are you talking about? We sent you everything that we had." How did they said, "Well, it's all gone. We put it on sale at 9 a.m. and by 9:15, it's all gone. We need some more of it." So that was kind of a step back to say, well, maybe we've got something on our hands here, and maybe this is going to be something special. And as it turned out, it was. Like, this beer has turned into a key celebration point for our brewery every single year. After the first couple of years, we sort of settled into the Saturday before Thanksgiving as the traditional release date. It packs out our tap room with folks traveling from all across the state and even from outside the state to join us for the grand release. And it's turned into something where even just outside of the regular liquid, we've started doing some of these variations, like what you get to taste using different barrels, using some added ingredients, and really just trying to make it a fun canvas to play with. Certainly unique this year. We were still able to have the event. We had to make some serious alterations to how we did it, to space tables out, to take reservations for the tap room, which is something we've never done. And I frankly hope we don't have to do again. I kind of like seeing the crowded space, but we got a lot of positive feedback for the safe environment for that. And fortunately, this presentation is a way for us to try to bring some of that unique perspective to you guys as well, even outside of what we're doing with the beer normally. Sorry, I was getting parched from all that talking. The folks at Counterculture have been great to us throughout this. We've been working with them almost since the inception of this liquid. That gentleman on the left there is Brett Smith. He's the founder of Counterculture Coffee. They're based just a couple hours up the road from us in Durham, North Carolina. Over the years, we've always used Counterculture Coffee for the beer. We've never deviated from that. The coffee blends are a little bit different each year. Some years we've used some custom roasts. Some years we've used some off-the-shelf products, and we've mixed some stuff around. This year, we used exclusively Hologram. It's one of my favorites. It's what I keep in the cabinet to drink on the daily at home. Pick some up at your local supermarket or at your local coffee specialty store. It's great liquid. And these guys have been great. They're so much fun to work with. They frequently will come down for the release party. They'll bring an espresso machine and pull some shots of espresso so that you can taste the coffee mix alongside the beer. Just to really make it a unique event. We're really excited about working with them on this project and how far it's come, and we look forward to continue to work with them years on into the line. time to taste some more beer. I hope you enjoyed that first sip. The next one that we're opening up here is the Silent Night Reserve. It's denoted with this little sticker right here on the front that says Reserve in big letters. This particular one, like the first round that you tasted, the base liquid was aged for 12 months in Blanton's bourbon barrels this year. The barrels have been a little different year over year. This year's batch was aged in Blanton's bourbon barrels. The Reserve edition of Silent Night comes out of a partnership with Mother Earth Spirits, which is our distillery located just a block away. You'll hear more about them later as well. The Reserve version spent 12 months aged in 30-gallon Mother Earth whiskey barrels. They had aged that whiskey for a couple of years. Once that liquid came out, we took those wet barrels, popped this liquid in there, and are ready to taste some more. So give yourself a good 2 or 3 finger pour there. Take notes just like what we talked about: appearance, head retention, aroma, flavor, mouthfeel as you go through. Make sure you get a good sniff. Take note if you see anything different, smell anything, taste anything different than what you got out of the first round. And we'll talk more about what our notes are with this liquid as we get further into the presentation. So with that, I'm going to pitch it over to Matthew a little bit. I'm going to let him talk some on exactly what goes into making this beer. It's a lengthy process, and I know he's got a lot to talk about. So, Matthew, you're up.
Yeah, thanks so much, Travis. I actually really enjoy brewing this beer. This brew day is always kind of a challenge for us, and you can see our 3-vessel brew stand there. That's where all the magic kind of goes down. Before I delve too deeply into that, I have to apologize for the failing light. I'm kind of in the back of a cabin up in the mountains right now, and this is the only kind of place I could find to cloister away and do this presentation. So I'm sorry about the failing light, but hopefully you can continue to see me. I've kind of rigged my phone up here so that I've got
We're just so glad you're here.
some illumination. In any case, this is a former brewer at Mother Earth Brewing, Greg Papp, brewing Silent Night on Silent Night Brew Day. This is a huge grist bill. The ratio of grains that we use to water is quite massive on this day, which is partly what makes it so challenging to extract all the nice sweet wort from that grist bill that we need in order to facilitate the making of this beer. I'm sure that some of you have some idea about the brewing process, but just to talk you through it a little bit, we're going to take 2-row barley and a number of other specialty grains, other types of roasted barley, caramelized barley, and we're going to grind them up in a mill, and we're going to mix them with water at a certain temperature to affect a chemical change in the makeup of that, like very oatmeal-like slurry that's going to convert a lot of the starch from the 2-row barley into sugar. Converting most of those sugars and then extracting them using that lauter tun, that mash lauter vessel on the right hand side that you can see right next to the text, is probably the most important part of the brew day for us on this particular day, in that this beer doesn't receive a major hop addition, just a little bit of hop in the kettle to counterbalance the sweetness from the mashing process. So we will transfer that wort into the brew kettle, boil it with some Chinook hops, and then we will divert that liquid into the whirlpool, where it will be churned in a cyclonic motion so that we can get a hot break or a precipitate out into the center of that vessel. We'll then knock it out, go through heat exchange to cool the liquid down to a proper fermentation temperature, and from there it will go into the fermentation vessels. And for some reason, Travis, my controls aren't working on this end, so here we are. These cylindrical vessels are where Silent Night really begins its life. That you're looking at the cellar in Mother Earth right across from the brew house, and we will ferment in these vessels for about 3 weeks. Silent Night and stouts typically are ales, but normally the fermentation time for an ale is about 10 to 14 days. But this one does take a little bit longer because the ABV that we need is a little bit higher, and that in turn means that the yeast have to work a little bit harder and they need a little bit more time to process all that sugar. There can be the conditions in a Russian Imperial Stout wort are very stressful on yeast. So we do some things to try to help them out, help them process all those fermentable sugars into alcohol and all of the lovely flavor compounds that you're enjoying currently. But aside from that, I mean, it's brewed up to this point, like a typical beer. It's processed on our system. It is fermented in stainless steel tanks, and then from there we will take an additional step. All of our Silent Night is transferred into bourbon barrels, or now transferred into some Mother Earth whiskey casks. We don't do any unbarrel aged Silent Night currently, although I have had interest in from some consumers in getting some that is not barrel aged, just to do a comparative. And that's something that we might look into down the road for as a niche product for something like this, for instance. So yeah, if you don't mind advancing to the next screen, Trav. This is our cellar crew transferring Silent Night into these wooden barrels. These barrels are Blanton's barrels. They're the ones that we used this year. We have changed up and we've used a lot of different wood over the years. And for us, what makes Silent Night really special is the character that each barrel brings to the fight. And that's why this year, instead of having a lot of different flavored variants, we've been focusing more and more on how the thyme and the wood char and the type of spirit that was aged in the cask affect the flavor. And that's why we really enjoy presenting a Blanton's Barrel Aged Silent Night, a Mother Earth Reserve Silent Night aged for 12 months in Mother Earth casks. And then the Grand Reserve, which we'll get to a little bit further down the road, that was aged in Mother Earth casks for 24 months. That's not to say that we don't like to party and we don't like to have fun with lots of different ingredients, and that is the reason why we have Noche Silenciosa. But yeah, we've really been enjoying this study in how wood can affect our Russian Imperial Stout. We will leave it in the barrels for at least 12 months, but after that, we're really relying on our palates to determine when this liquid is going to hit the packaging. So that said, I think we better take a moment and talk about what happens in those barrels. What happens in these wooden casks? You know, what are we really doing? Well, I think to do that, we have to understand a little bit about barrel anatomy. Barrels are made at cooperages, typically of New American white oak, which is then charred. And there are 5 to 7 grades of charring, depending on what char scale you're looking at. And distillers will select certain charring to get different expression from the wood. Lower charring will give you better aldehyde development. Higher charring will give you better ethyl glycol content, which will improve the sweetness of certain beverages. And you know, at the end of the day, really, as brewers who are taking retired spirits casks, the spirit itself really does make a difference in the final flavor for us. But you do get some of these other compounds from the wood if you're leaving liquid in there for a year at a time, you know, or more in some cases. So I've listed a few of these compounds. I don't want to go too esoteric here. If you are interested in having a deeper conversation with me via email about barrel aging, I'm open to that. And if you want some literature, I can guide you and help you find some things to read that can help deepen your knowledge about barrel aging spirits and beer. I believe that the next slide delves even deeper into the chemistry behind barrel aging. And you'll see again here some of those aldehyde compounds that I talked about. These are derived from a compound in the wood called lignin. And the more you toast it, the more the compounds change. And they can range from being very, very sweet or very like spicy, expressing like vanilla or cedar, or they can develop even more and just become kind of a nondescript sweetness. And then you can get tannic compounds like phenols, um, which can both uh, it's a balance. You want to balance these compounds, and that's why a lot of spirits makers will use a number of different chars. Um, and But for us at Mother Earth Spirits, we tend to just use char 3, which is a middle of the road um, charring decision that the cooper will make, and that will kind of pull from all aspects. You'll get some ethyl glycol, you'll get some vanillin, serine for sure. I don't want to stay too long here. As I said before, if you're interested in this, feel free to contact me directly after the Zoom meeting. Now we'd like to invite you to open the 24-month aged Grand Reserve. It's aged 24 months in Mother Earth whiskey spirits barrels. And this is a product I feel especially proud about. I'm not going to give you my tasting notes just yet. And I know that Travis is equally excited to share his thoughts and feelings about this liquid. But we do encourage you. Now, you don't have to. We don't want to step on your party, but we do encourage you to taste it critically and compare it to the other 2 Silent Nights that you've already opened as we progress into the rest of the presentation. I've been talking a lot about the distillery. I've been talking a lot about Mother Earth Spirits, and this project has really become a distinguished distillery over the past 5 years. We started up 5 years ago. We celebrated the opening at the brewery's 5-year anniversary. So it's going into its 6th year, which means that we have had a lot of good time to put away spirit and put it away into wood. When we first started this project, it was developed in a space that was like maybe a 15 by 15 room in the brewery, and we realized very rapidly that that was not going to be enough space. So we ended up housing it there for about 1.5 years before we expanded down the street into its own facility. We really rely a lot on these guys. When it comes to Silent Night, they have become primary flavor influencers. The make of their spirit, the flavor of their new make spirit, the way that it ages in these small black swan casks, and the time that it spends there. I mean, that's all. I mean, that's a key ingredient for Silent Night, especially for the Reserve and the Grand Reserve Silent Nights that you're tasting now. If you're noticing some pretty big differences in those two liquids from the previous, there are definitely reasons why. The casks are only 30 gallons. The smaller the cask, the more surface area, the more liquid to wood interfacing you have. And that is definitely present. I get a much stronger whiskey note from the Reserve and the Grand Reserve than I do from the Blanton's barrel age, because the Blanton's barrels are 53 gallons. You know, they're traditional U.S. bourbon casks that are sized in a way that fit in a traditional American rick house. These are racked 30-gallon Black Swan barrels. Black Swan has been a great partner to our distillery. They keep us in the wood. Even despite COVID and the shortages, we've been able to continue putting spirit away, which has been a big boon for our business. Like I've said before, we focus on char number 3. That really gives us the right blend of flavors. You can see in the top left that charring process going down at Black Swan. I wish the picture was less pixelated, but every barrel is flamed like this, up and down several times to create a nice activated charring, a nice activated charcoal layer between the liquid and the linen degradation compounds that we were trying to harvest. So there are kind of a few things happening when liquid hits wood. The activated charcoal layer will adsorb sulfur compounds, which are typically undesirable in beer. So it cleans up the liquid a little bit. If there are any unwanted sulfurous compounds, that helps to cleanse the liquid of those things. We don't get a lot of sulfur production with the brewing of Silent Night, but were we to, that would be something that a step that we could take that would help to cleanse it. So there's a subtractive component as well as the additive steps that we've talked about earlier. The absorption of aldehyde, the absorption of tannin and phenol, ethyl glycol, these things. So, but I think predominantly the thing that makes these casks stand out is the new make spirit, the quality of the new make spirit, and the size of the cask. And with that, I think we should kind of do a little homage and talk a little bit more about Mother Earth Spirits. I don't want to do too much of a sales pitch, but these guys are really important to the process and the make of Silent Night. So I wanted to show you their catalog. They currently offer Mother Earth whiskey, which is aged at least 2 years on New American Charred Oak in small cask, larger surface area, so we get really quick aging. And I believe that the blends that are coming out now that we're in our 6th year of operation are just truly excellent. It's an award-winning whiskey. It wins medals at ADI and across the pond at UK whiskey festivals. I couldn't speak more highly of it. And we also offer a gin, and we also offer a Cabernet Sauvignon barrel-aged gin. Both products are award-winning at national and international competitions, and I just think that everything coming out of that facility is just wonderful. So back to Silent Night and the life cycle of Silent Night within the brewery. After 12 to 24 months now, we begin to extract the liquid from the barrels. We're tasting it after about month 11, especially the stuff in smaller casks. We don't want it to go, we want good balance. We don't want it to go too woody, too bourbony. We still want the underlying stout to speak. So that's what we're doing here. We start to get excited about a month and a half before Silent Night Day, which is historically the Saturday before Thanksgiving. We'll really be pulling thieves about once a week from the barrels. We'll be thieving samples in a sanitary fashion from each barrel and trying to figure out what our blends are going to be. So from here, the Silent Night is pumped from the cask into the bright tank that you see on the left-hand side there, and we'll carbonate it there, and it'll await packaging and do some tertiary maturation in those tanks. After that, we're on to packaging, and all of this, I think this is one of the, most beers are not packaged in this way anymore. This is a kind of a archaic method of filling bottles. We've got here before you a 4-head wine filler. The Silent Night team, the packaging team for that day is bolstered by members of our brewing and our packaging team. It takes 5 or 6 people for this process to work efficiently. So you've got one human depalletizing cases of labeled bottles. We've got another human rinsing these bottles and passing them in quick succession to our filler operator. The filler operator is kind of playing a game of whack-a-mole with these levers. He's doing a double CO2 purge, and then he will fill the bottle and then pass that off to another human who's operating a manual corker. And then that will go to someone who's operating the cager, and then finally back into those cases and onto a skid. So this is a big production push for us. This is not automated equipment that we're using to affect these fills. This is just hard work, and it's one of the things that I think makes this product unique. Whenever you're enjoying a bottle of Silent Night, a lot of hands have touched it to make it happen. So we're very proud of that.
The very definition of handcrafted beer.
Yes, indeed. And now after without further ado, I suppose it's time to open that Silent Night Noche Silenciosa, the final bottle in your collection there. And go ahead and pour that in a snifter if you have it, or a separate glass, and roll that around and enjoy it. And I think that that will wrap up this segment of the presentation. I know that Travis and I are looking forward to fielding your questions. If you have any that you'd like to ask, I think hit the chat with them, and we're happy to. Unless Travis, you think it might be fine to do it another way, but I think that either way is good.
Yeah, we can stick with the chat. As you guys taste the Noche Silenciosa and its comparison point, I'm going to go ahead and pop over to the next slide, which has got all of our tasting notes for each one of those bottles. It's a little bit crowded as we get onto that slide, but we wanted you to be able to see all the tasting notes side by side so that you'd have comparison points for each one of these, and you could see what we get out of these, what we expect to get out of them versus what you may be tasting as you go along. So I hope you're enjoying the Noche. Hope you have enjoyed all of these. Hope you know why we asked you to save that one for last now, since there's a whole lot of action happening inside that bottle. Matthew, I do have one question that Jordan has posed to us in the chat. How many barrels do you use for an annual release of Silent Night? How many, I think it's how many barrels are we utilizing to age the liquid that we're releasing?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really varies by year. Obviously, this year we began production before we knew kind of what was in the cards for 2020. So we used as many barrels as we typically do, which is about 48 53-gallon Blanton's barrels, and we will also typically fill 20 to 24 Mother Spirits barrels, some of which will age a year and some of which will be carried over to the following year. I think this year we came out of more Mother Spirits barrels and less Blanton's barrels. So next year we'll have some different offerings that will also have been aged 24 months in larger casks. I think we're going to end up having some fun with those. Travis and I are still tossing around ideas for what to do with those, but I'm feeling like it's going to get interesting in 2021.
If you have suggestions of things that you might like to see in your Silent Night in the future, feel free to drop those in the chat as well, or send us an email. You know, there's a certain level of tradition that we like to keep and like to stick with in terms of this liquid, but we also really love the idea of experimenting, and we've kind of gone all over the place in the past. We've played with I think last year we did a tequila barrel aged. We've played a little bit with both some fruits like cherries and also utilizing some floral notes like lavender to really play with things and try to do something different. The Stout is a really good canvas for some of those flavors, and it's really fun and really unique just to see what we can come up with. We do have a question. Have you tested a 36-month? I have not tested a 36-month. I do believe that we left a little bit of liquid behind this year so that we can see how it goes further down the line. So that certainly is something that's on our radar, I think, in the future. It's a delicate line with the liquid. You don't want it to become too oxidized. Beer is a little bit of a different challenge as opposed to something like whiskey. Matthew, you might be able to elaborate on some of that as well, but I think we're certainly down for experimentation.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have so much CO2 breakout and nucleation that once you seal those barrels, oxidation could be a factor, but I think the main issue there is just the liquid becoming unbalanced. That's not to say, I mean, maybe that's something that we try this year because we do have some holdover, just as the nature of the event that we were allowed to have this year, you know. We didn't come out of all the barrels that we filled. So that might be one thing that Travis and I can talk about, and maybe we'll get into that.
Absolutely. Like I said, we like the traditional elements that we get here, but certainly we're down to experiment and do some different things with these. There's no telling what the future holds as far as that goes. Still got a little bit of time. If anybody else has any questions that they want to pitch our way, feel free to throw those in the chat. If you're looking for most of these liquids, I'm not sure where everybody's based. You know, the regular Silent Night usually sees some pretty good distribution in your local independent bottle shops and some specialty stores like Total Wine throughout North Carolina. You can find all of your favorite Mother Earth beers in those locations if you If you don't see the ones you're looking for, ask for them by name. It's, for me as a sales guy, it's one thing for me to go in with the other 900 beer reps that show up on a given day to try to sell somebody beer. But when customers are looking for it, those guys are certainly willing to bring it in. It may look a little bit different if you haven't had one of our standard brews in a while. This year, we did make some pretty big changes to our packaging, shifting away from 12-ounce bottles and into 100% 12-ounce cans with some brand new artwork, tying together some scenes from around North Carolina with a fresh look that is distinctly Mother Earth, but distinctly different from the way that they looked before. So certainly be on the lookout for those. We've got 5 great year-round beers: our Weeping Willow Belgian Wit, the Endless River Kolsch, the Long Weekend IPA, the Vanishing Tides Premium Lager, and then the Alpenglow Hazy IPA. All fantastic beers, many of those award-winning. We'd love for you to take part in those, either by picking them up in your local body shop or bottle shop, or by checking out motherearthbrewing.com and hitting our online store where we can send some to you. So, anyone else with questions? If there are not any more, I don't think we have a whole lot more to the presentation. I think this mostly wraps it up. Matthew, anything final thoughts you'd like to add?
Not really. Is everybody sure? No, normally Q&A goes a little bit longer than this, and I don't want you guys to feel shortchanged. So if there's anything on your mind, there's no bad question.
Got a question again from Jordan asking, does the beer age in the bottle?
That's a good question. So yeah, absolutely. Every beer is always aging, regardless of what vessel it is in. I mean, it can age in a bright tank. It's aging on wood when we cellar it. Certainly after packaging, it's got a little bit more, just by the nature of moving beer into new vessels. No matter how much you purge it, that vessel with CO2, it's going to pick up a little bit of oxygen. Even Anheuser-Busch's canning lines have some DO pickup. That's inevitable. And so once you introduce even trace elements of oxygen, the liquid starts to change. There are compounds that do become oxygenated, and they can give, moderate kind of papery flavor, or some say cardboard, to the beers. So that's one way that they can age. But beers can also smooth out over time. There are minute changes in the flavor profile and makeup that beers can become less hot over time. And I think that's why there's an appreciation for Silent Night that even was bottled up to 4 and 5 years ago. Travis and I will still open bottles and totally enjoy going back in time. Like, those are touchstones for us that we can use as guides as we go forward in this project.
Absolutely. It's one of the more fun elements of the Silent Night Day celebration, as well as having these variants available on tap. We frequently will hold back several vintage kegs as well, and throw on as many as 5 different years of Silent Night, so that you can taste a multitude of different years of production side by side to see how they're mellowing, how they're changing over time. We frequently have some repeat guests who will pick up bottles, and we'll do the same at home, opening several years worth of bottles side by side. And that makes it fun. It's that indicator that beer is a living and evolving thing that tells a story. Each year kind of tells its own story. And it's fun to see those evolutions over time. We recommend that if you've got some bottles, that we'd love for you to hang on to some of those and see how they go throughout time. It's a really fun experiment. Great question here. Is there any plan to increase production of Silent Night? I think it's a really fine line in terms of making enough to satisfy the market demand while trying to keep it special and not have it be something that just sits on the shelf over and over. There's a really fine line between, I guess, rarity and satisfying all the people that want it and not having it go overboard. So I guess the best answer I could give to that question is that dependent on market demand and sales data, we'll make the right decisions to try to make sure that the folks that want it can get it. I do think that some of these specialty bottles, particularly things like the Reserve and the Grand Reserve, we're certainly going to be largely on a limited basis with those, just by virtue of how much liquid we actually have to try to age. We only have a set number of barrels that we can use from time to time, so those are probably going to continue to be limited. But we do want to make sure that the folks that want Silent Night have the opportunity to get it. Is there any plans to do something like this for the Window Pane series? That's another great question. The Window Pane series is a series of beers that we produced in the past. The idea of those were large format barrel aged beers brewed with non-traditional ingredients that can be sourced in North Carolina. That series kind of took a little bit of a backseat this year. We don't know what that's going to look like. Yeah, sorry, lots of talking there. That series kind of took a little bit of a backseat this year. We don't know what that's going to look like in the long run, if we're going to continue to produce that or produce any other variants within that. But we'll see. These have been, we've done a couple of these now. This is the second one. We've gotten some pretty good feedback on the series that we've done, so there's no telling what the future is going to hold for some of those. Can 2021 Silent Night be pre-ordered already? Family and friends are sold on it. The short answer to that is no. We don't have 2021 Silent Night available for pre-order yet, but we're glad to know that you guys are enjoying it, that you're really digging what you're getting out of that. Just keep an eye on our social media channels, on our newsletter. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, just head to motherearthbrewing.com where you can do that. We'd love to get that on your radar now, so that whenever it's available, you can make sure you're among the first in line to get some. Matthew, another one for you here. Is there any difference in carbonation levels between the various Silent Nights due to aging or to any other factors that may make those changes?
That's an interesting question. Technically, there should not be. We carbonate each Silent Night to 2.7 volumes before it's filled on the hand bottler. But that therein lies the rub. It's all hand bottled, right? So there's a little bit of human error that goes into it. Some could be in the bottle at 2.5 and some could be in the bottle right at 2.7. It really depends on how fast the filler was being run. Humans aren't robots, so there's going to be a little bit of variance. But I think that's part of what makes this product a little bit delightful. But they should all have enough carbonation that you're getting some good bubbles. And if you're not, I would recommend pouring more aggressively, just to get a little bit of that head. That's part of the drinking experience when it comes to beer. You want to knock out some of that CO2 during your pour. Otherwise, you can end up with a pretty bad tummy ache later on down the road. So dispense is very important when it comes to enjoying your beer.
Absolutely. That is, I don't see any more questions popping in. If you've got any more, feel free to pitch them to us. I do want to say, guys, thank you so much again for being a part of this. Certainly this is a weird year for everybody, and there are a lot of local businesses. You see it every day in the news that are having trouble and that are struggling. And it's doing things like this and supporting the folks that you enjoy supporting. That's going to keep us around in the long term. So we certainly appreciate it. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to beer. We're really glad that you made us a part of your drinking season this year, and hope that you'll continue to do that in years to come as well. One final question popping in from the chat here. Gene asks, he says he has a bottle of the tequila barrel aged version, which we did last year. And do we have any more info on that version? Matthew, you want to talk a little about what went into tequila barrel aged Silent Night? I see those eyes towards the ceiling there a little bit, like we're trying to remember what went into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually a cool story, so I get these barrels from a broker who's in Kentucky, who has access to a lot of bourbon barrels, but sometimes he gets some truly interesting specialty barrels. And if I catch him at the right time, he'll come at me with something cool. And this year he had like two 53-gallon Reposado casks. And we had been kicking around the idea of doing something with peppers, and that was it. I just pulled the trigger on them because I just thought they were so neat. We got them in, and sure enough, they were really great barrels, and the quality of them was so unique. And when we were doing the barrel inspection, we flipped them over, and a little bit of reposado came out, so we knew they were like really good, freshly dumped casks, which is always, that's what I always like to fill, is like just go no holds barred into a freshly dumped spirits cask. I mean, that's how you end up getting the best liquid out. So yeah, we had those, and we just did a little riff. I believe that we added, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we put some chilies in to those tequila barrels that year, right?
Chilies, I cannot remember. I do know specifically that we toasted some cinnamon sticks and put those in there.
That's
Uh,
right.
I
Yeah.
cannot remember if there were uh, chilies specifically in tequila barrel batch, although it would make a lot of sense if there were, because those two things go together frequently, it seems.
Yeah. I think it would be cool to riff on Noche Silenciosa if we could ever get more tequila barrels like that, because I think they added like a
Absolutely.
really unique flavor. I mean, you can taste the tequila. You could taste the reposado in the tequila
Absolutely.
barrel. Yeah.
Peppers too are one of those things that are really delicate. You know, it's sort of like toothpaste. Once you squeeze that out of the tube, there's no putting it back in there. And once you put those peppers in that beer, if you go crazy with it, there's no way to get them out either. And I think we did a pepper beer, I think a couple of years ago, that I remember tasting some of that. I was like, wow, this is really well balanced. And I had people coming up to me a couple of days later at the event saying, man, this stuff is so hot, I can't even drink it. It is just lighting my mouth on fire. And I think there was just some, whether it was some imbalance between the barrels at specific times when they came out or what. It just goes to show that you have to be really, really careful. And it's one of the things that we always strive for with this liquid specifically, is balance. We want you to taste each of the flavor notes that are coming through in there, whether it's the chocolate, the coffee, the additives like peppers or the oak, but we don't want any one of those to necessarily overshadow any others. We want there to be balance kind of across the board. So we do want to continue to play with peppers, but as somebody who, on a scale of 1 to 10, is a solid 3 to 4 when it comes to hot wings, I always want us to be a little bit cautious with some of those things too. So, guys, thank you so much again for being a part of this. Like I said, I know there's a lot of beers out there to drink. It really means a lot to us that you were here today, that you joined us the day after Christmas, and that you're drinking this. The fact that you guys are here, that you're buying these beers and enjoying them, gives us the ability to do what we love. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. The reason that we're able to keep making these beers is because you guys are out there picking them up and drinking them. So thank you so much again for being a part of this. We hope that as some of the social distancing measures relax and as the COVID virus hopefully dies down and we all get vaccines, that we'll be able to see you in person down in Kinston, that we'll be able to share a beer with you and raise a glass with you. So thank you again so much for being a part of this presentation today.
Thanks, everybody.
And we look forward to seeing you guys soon. Cheers.
Cheers.